Welcome to Lento English. Ready to level up your English? Here we learn through stories, slow, clear, and fun. Listen, relax, and enjoy the journey.
One introduction. Imagine a big land far away. It has green forests, tall mountains, and blue seas. Under the ground there is gold and oil. This land gives us food like potatoes and chocolate. It also gives us happy music. This big land is called Latin America. It is a very rich land with many beautiful things. But in this rich land, life is hard for many people. Some people are very poor. Life is not fair for everyone. People do not have the same chances. Why is this happening in a place with so much wealth? Look at two towns on a border. They are called Nogales. One town is in the north in a country called the United States. The other town is in the south in a country called Mexico. These towns are next to each other. They have the same land around them. The people share some of the same culture, but their lives are very different. In the town in the north, Nogales, Arizona, people have more money. They earn much more than 7 times the money of people in the other town. Almost all adults finished high school. People have good health care. They can go to doctors and hospitals easily. The government helps people and listens to them. People feel safe in their homes and with their businesses. They are not afraid that someone will take their things. In the town in the south, Nogales, Sonora, life is not so good. There is much more crime here. Many bad things happen. Most adults did not finish high school. It is hard to find good health care. Babies sometimes get sick because there are not enough doctors. It is hard to start a business. People might need to give money to bad politicians to work. Life is not safe for people or their businesses. So these two towns are very different. One is much richer and safer than the other. They show a big difference between the north and the south. Why are these two places so close together so different? Why are countries in the north often richer than countries in the south? This story will look at history to help understand why this is true today. 2. Old times and new people. Before people came from Europe, Latin America was a land with many different groups of people. Some groups were very large and had strong societies, like the great Aztec Empire in what is now Mexico, and the vast Inca Empire in the mountains of South America. These empires had many people, important cities, and valuable resources. For a long time, this part of the world was full of life and activity, much more than the lands further north. The lands in the north had fewer people and smaller groups. Latin America was considered very important and valuable. Then, in the 1500s, ships began to arrive from Spain. The people on these ships were called Spaniards, and they came with clear plans. They wanted to find gold, silver, and other valuable things from the land. They also had a strong desire to take control of the land and the people who lived there. They saw the local people as a source of labor to help them get the resources. The first meetings between the Spanish and the local people were varied. In some places, the local people were not easy to control. They fought back against the newcomers, and sometimes the Spanish faced difficulties. For example, in one early meeting, a Spanish leader was killed. However, the Spanish were determined to find places with riches and people they could rule over. They found that the large empires like the Aztecs and Incas had many people and wealth. The Spanish used force and strategy to defeat these empires. They captured important leaders, such as the Aztec ruler Montezuma and the Inca emperor Atahualpa. They took the gold and silver found in these empires, melting down beautiful objects to send back to Spain as simple metal bars. They used violence and fighting to defeat the local armies. After defeating the empires, the Spanish put in place new systems of rule. They often used parts of the old local systems but changed them to benefit themselves. They gave Spanish leaders control over groups of local people. These people were then forced to work for the Spanish, for example, in mines or on farms. They also had to give valuable things like food or goods to the new Spanish rulers. This forced work and taking of resources changed life greatly for the local people. It meant the Spanish got very rich, while the local people lost their freedom and their wealth. This early period of arrival and conquest created a way of life where a few people had power and wealth, and many others were forced to work for them. This was a big change from how things were before the Spanish came. 2 ways to start. When Europeans came to the new lands, they started building colonies. Spain began in the south. The Spanish wanted gold, silver, and people to work for them. In some places, there were already big groups of people with their own leaders and systems. For example, the Spanish met the Guarani people. The Guarani had their own way of life and leaders. The Spanish saw this. They took control of the Guarani system. Spanish leaders married into local families. They became the new rulers. They used the old system to make people work for them and give them things. This was Spain's way. They often used the systems they found to get rich. They created rules like encomienda. This rule gave a Spanish person control over a group of local people. These people had to work for the Spanish boss and give him goods. There is a famous story about a mountain called Potosi. This mountain was in the Andes Mountains. People found a lot of silver there. It was one of the richest places for silver in the world. To get the silver, Spain needed many workers. They used a system called mita. This system was like an old local way of making people work for the community, but the Spanish changed it. They forced 1 in every 7 men from a large area to work in the dangerous silver mines at Potosi. Many people died working there. Spain got very rich from this silver, but the local people suffered greatly. England started colonies later, mostly in the north. This area was different. There were not as many big groups of people living close together like in the south. It was harder for the English to find easy riches or to just take control of local people and make them work. Early English settlements like Jamestown were difficult. They tried to make the local people work, but it did not work well. The local people were not easy to control, and they could fight back or move away. The English also tried to force their own people, the colonists, to work very hard, but the land was big. Colonists could leave and try to live alone or with local tribes. The English needed a different way. They started to give land to people who came to the colony. They also gave colonists a way to help make rules. This meant people had a reason to work hard and build things. They were working for themselves and had a voice in their lives. This was very different from the Spanish way of taking control and forcing people to work for others. 4 rules for living. After the Spanish came, they made rules for the people living in the lands they took. They wanted to get rich quickly. One important rule system was called encomienda. This gave a Spanish person control over a group of local people. These local people had to work for the Spanish person for free. They also had to give them things like food or goods. Another system was called mita. This was an old system from the time before the Spanish, where people sometimes did work for the leaders. But the Spanish changed it. They used mita to force many local men to work in dangerous mines, like the big silver mine in Potosi. Millions worked there and many died. These rules helped a small number of Spanish people and their families become very rich. They took land and forced people to work, but life for most local people became very hard. They had little food, little money, and almost no freedom. These systems made the new colonies very unequal. A few had everything, and many had almost nothing. Things were different in the north, where the English came later. It was harder for the English to find gold or control the local people easily. So the English had to find another way. They tried to force their own people, the colonists, to work hard, but this did not work well either. People could just leave and go somewhere else. So the English tried something different. They gave land to people who came to live there. This meant people could own their own farms and homes. They also let the colonists have meetings and make some of their own laws. This meant people had a voice in how things were run. These rules gave people a reason to work hard. If you worked, you could keep your land and make money for your family. You could invest your time and ideas. People felt safer building businesses because they had a say in the rules and could own property. This encouraged people to be creative and productive. So, the Spanish rules focused on taking wealth from many for the benefit of a few. The rules in the North slowly started to give more people chances and reasons to work hard for themselves and their families. These different starts created different ways of life in the two parts of the new lands. 5. New countries, old problems. After many years, the lands in Latin America wanted to be free from Spain. This happened around the start of the 1800s. But this change was not for everyone. The rich and powerful people who were often from Spanish families were afraid. They were afraid of losing their money and power if Spain changed its rules. So, these wealthy groups decided to become independent from Spain. They did this to keep their control. Because of this, freedom did not mean a better life for most people. The old ways of life, where a few people had everything and many people had very little, did not change much. Power stayed with the small group of rich families. Being free from Spain was difficult for these new countries. There was often fighting and not much peace. Governments were not strong and rules were not always fair for everyone. It was hard for ordinary people to feel safe or to start their own businesses. In the North, the lands that became the United States also fought to be free. They wanted freedom from Britain, but their path was different. Over time, more people had a voice in how they were ruled. They had meetings and made their own laws. When the United States became a new country, they made rules that gave power to more people. These rules helped protect people's land and their ideas. This meant that many different people had a chance to work and make their lives better. This difference in how freedom came shaped the future of the two regions in very different ways. 6. Different roads to money. After countries became free, they needed to find ways to grow their economies. In Latin America, this time was full of changes and struggles for power. The new governments were often not strong or stable. It was common for leaders to take power using force, not through fair elections. For example, in one country, there were over 50 presidents in less than 50 years. This political instability meant that the rules for everyone could change suddenly. Life became difficult for ordinary people who wanted to build a better future. It was hard to feel safe about their work, their business, or their land. Property rights were not secure. Someone with power could potentially take what you had built. Starting a new business was very risky, not just because of crime, but because you might need to pay bribes to officials or face problems from powerful people who did not want competition. Getting money to start a business was also a problem. Banks were often few in number and controlled by a small group of wealthy people. They did not offer many loans, and the interest rates were very high. This meant that only the rich could easily get money to invest, often using it to make their own businesses bigger and stop others from starting. Monopolies, where one company or person controls a whole part of the economy, were common. This stopped many people from having a chance to succeed. In North America, the situation developed differently after independence. The government became more stable over time. Laws were made that gave people more secure rights to their property and businesses. This encouraged people to invest their time and money because they felt safer. If you had a new idea for how to make something, you could get a patent. This was a legal paper that protected your idea, so others could not just copy it easily. Banks became more common, and there was more competition between them. This made it easier for ordinary people to get loans to start businesses or buy land. Land was often available for people to own and work on. These rules and systems created more opportunities for many different people to become successful, not just a small group. These different roads led to different economic paths. In Latin America, the lack of stable rules and the control by a few made it hard for the economy to grow in a way that helped everyone. In North America, more secure rules and opportunities for more people helped create a stronger economy with more chances for ordinary citizens. 7. Rich lands, big problems. Sometimes a country has many natural resources. This means things like oil, metals, sugar, or wood. These resources can bring a lot of money and make a country seem very rich. But sometimes having many resources can also create big problems. One problem is that the country might only focus on the one main resource. For example, if a country has a lot of oil, it might just think about selling oil. It might not help other businesses or farms grow. Making money from the resource seems easy, so people do not build other types of work or industry. Look at Venezuela. This country had a lot of oil. Because of oil, Venezuela became one of the richest countries in its region very quickly. Money came in fast from selling oil to other parts of the world. But this wealth caused problems later. The money from oil made the country's own money very strong. This made it hard for Venezuela to sell other things it made, like coffee or clothes, to other countries because they were too expensive. The government also spent a lot of the oil money. When the price of oil went down, the country had big troubles. the money lost its value very fast, and many people faced great hardship. This happened even though the land was rich. This was not just a problem for Venezuela or just with oil. Countries with lots of silver, sugar, or other resources sometimes had similar difficulties. The great wealth from these resources often only made a small group of people very rich. Most people in the country did not get much benefit, and their lives did not get much better. Some countries with many natural resources found different ways to use their wealth. They tried to help other parts of their economy grow so that more people could have good jobs and chances. 8. Why today is like this. We have seen how the past is important. Decisions made long ago still touch people's lives today. In some places, the way things started created systems that were not fair for everyone. These systems often helped a small group get rich and powerful. They used the work of many other people. Because of this history, it can be hard for people in some countries to feel safe. They might worry about their home or business being taken away. They might feel they cannot trust the rules or the people who make them. It can be difficult for ordinary people to start a business or invest money because the system does not support them. But in other places, the history was different. The way things started led to rules that gave more people a chance. People had more freedom and could have a voice in how things were run. This made people feel safer to work hard and build things. They knew the rules were more likely to be fair and would protect their work and property. Good laws and fair chances are very important for a country to do well. When people feel they have a chance to succeed and that the rules are the same for everyone, they work harder and build a better future. Let's think back to the two towns we first saw, Nogales, Arizona and Nogales, Sonora. They share the same land and culture, but life is very different. One town has more chances, more safety, and people trust the system more. This is because its history created different kinds of rules and different ways that power and money were shared. The other town has less safety, fewer chances, and people face more problems. This is because its history left behind the ghosts of old systems. These systems were made to help a few people, not everyone. They made it hard for ordinary people to get ahead or feel secure. So this long story teaches us something important. The way countries were built long ago, the rules that were made, and how power was shared, all these things still explain a lot about why life is different for people today in different places.